ginning up and bunk might ring less false if it were only Democratic lawmakers now being targeted. The FBI today charging a 38-year-old Philadelphia man named Norman LeBoon with threatening the life of House Minority Whip Eric Cantor and his family in a YouTube video that has since obviously been taken down. No harm came to the Virginia Republican nor his family as a result of those threats. You will recall last week in an unrelated incident, evidently, a bullet that had been randomly fired up into the air broke the window on its way back down of a Richmond building that houses one of Mr. Cantor's campaign offices. Time now to turn to Markos Moulitasas, founder and publisher of dailycoast.com and author of Taking on the System. Great, thanks for your time tonight, sir.
Good evening, Keith.
To sum up the Republicans in the recent days and the weeks and over the weekend, particularly, there's lots of anger out there among Americans, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of it. But to suggest that to continually mention that anger and feeding it might be the same as inciting some of those people to act upon their anger, that's all bad journalism, it seems to be the latest line here. So if you report irresponsible rhetoric, that's far more irresponsible than if you exploit and expound irresponsible rhetoric.
Yeah, that's pretty absurd, obviously. I think the problem for Republicans and conservatives is that they don't want the world to see what their so-called populist uprising really is all about. When people get a really good look and they see the violence, they see the hatred, the bigotry, the sexism, racism, it obviously reflects very poorly on Republicans. So they'd rather the media not report on them so they could continue to rile them up in private and secretly, as opposed to out in the public where everybody can see it.
Why then did they not take advantage of a freebie? I mean, last week when the Democrats and the Republicans wanted the Republicans to stand with them on Capitol Hill at one news conference to denounce violence, the Republicans chose not to. Even being anti-violence is now a partisan issue?
Yeah, I mean, this is how crazy Washington, D.C. has gotten these days. I think bottom line is that if Republicans were to call out this sort of violent extremism, that they would actually be calling out a significant and key portion of their base, and then they'd have Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity and those guys would come down on them. So they're afraid to criticize their base because that base has some really strong and powerful supporters in the conservative media. So that's why they sort of, I think, have to keep their mouth shut, even though people on our side of the aisle, progressives, we condemn all violence against whoever it may be directed at. I think it's all bad for politics. It's not good for our democracy, and I wish it would all end.
Agreed. Amen. It has no point directed in any direction, and nor does the threat of it, nor does even the suggestion of it, nor does the implication of fear about it. But there is a political context for this. And when it turns out the congressman, or that the minority whip, Mr. Cantor, has been targeted, is that a political vindication for him, or is it more of a vindication for the Democrats and the media that the problem actually exists, and it exists in a bipartisan way, despite Mrs. Palin's attempt to dismiss it as ginned up and bunk?
There is some bipartisanship. I mean, this guy who threatened Cantor also threatened Barack Obama, and he actually also threatened the pig from Babe, right? So he's not even bipartisan. I think he transcends partisanship. I mean, this guy, I guess, threatens everybody. But I mean, let's see. Bottom line is that there's a party that fetishizes guns, that celebrates militarism and aggressiveness, and we all know which party that is. So it's hard for the Republicans to back down from that because it is, to the core, the essence of who they are.
That begs the question, after 9,000, the rocking crowd of 9,000 at Woodstock, the conservative 2010 version, we know again what the Tea Party is against. Socialism, taxes, Barack Obama, big government, anything with ism on it, botulism. Do we yet have any idea what they're actually for?
It's a very confusing and difficult thing to try to figure out. I'm sure they're for the rapture. I'm assuming that, and I think they say that they're for freedom. And I think the way they define freedom is the freedom of insurance companies to abuse and exploit their customers, and the freedom of millionaires not to have to pay taxes, and the freedom of them not to use those government services, which news reports now say they all use, like unemployment benefits and disability benefits and so on. So, but beyond that, you got me. My guess is as good as yours.
Markos Moulitasas of Daily Kos, as always, great thanks. Good to talk to you, sir.
Thank you very much.